Recording in progress.
There we go. So I'd like to welcome you and call to order the February 13th Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. And before we start the actions we're about to take this evening, I'd like to read our guiding principles, which are we raising the bar? Are we honoring the past but not living in the past? Are we building connections with outside partners? And is the decision-making process positively impacting diversity, equity, and inclusion? Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, we have a published agenda this evening, and are there any proposed amendments to this evening's agenda? Councilmember Chang.
I would like to pull item 4C off the consent and just have it be a business item.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay. 4C, there's a motion and a second. A motion by Councilmember Chang, a second by Councilmember Terneri to move consent item 4C and make it business item 7D. All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, that has been moved. Any other? Councilmember Rosapepe, go ahead.
Mayor, move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Rosapepe to approve the agenda as amended. And who was that second? I missed it. Councilmember Diener. Thank you. All in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the agenda has been set for this evening. We're to our first citizen comment period, and that is for anything on this evening's agenda. And if you wish to address the council for other items, that is at the tail end of the meeting. We'll actually do that ahead of our executive session. And so anyone wishing to address the council, you can step forward to the microphone. And anyone online, if you would just use the raise your hand feature, and the clerk will recognize you and bring you into the meeting. All right, I see no hands raised, and I see no one rushing the podium. So we will close the first citizen comment period. We have a consent agenda. There's a motion to approve.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the amended consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Morrissey, and it was at Councilmember Rosapepe on the second. All
Yes,
right. To approve the amended consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda has been passed. We have no presentations. We kind of do, but we've put them at the end in the discussion items this evening. We have no public hearings, so we'll move on to the business items. There's 4 of them, and the first of which is an adoption of an ordinance for the McCormick Village Overlay District Amendment 4-plex. Mr. Bond, this is you.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and members of Council. Before the City Council tonight is an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code Section 20.38285 and 20.38290. And this has to do with 4-plexes in the McCormick Village Overlay District. And to remind you, the McCormick Village Overlay District is at the intersection of McCormick Village Drive and Old Clifton Road. And it is a planned mixed housing and commercial development serving the McCormick area. When we wrote the overlay district regulations for McCormick Village, we worked with a developer on a concept that would allow for a variety of housing types. And the developer initially proposed single-family detached homes, backyard cottages, which are like carriage houses, ADUs over a garage. They wanted to do something called Paseo housing, which is a similar concept to a cottage housing development, and they wanted to do 6-plexes. And so when we wrote the regulations for that overlay district, we checked all the boxes based on what they said they wanted to do. One of the things that our code does is it distinguishes between an apartment building and a triplex and a 4-plex, and because they didn't tell us they wanted to do a triplex or a 4-plex, we didn't check that box, even though smaller units are allowed and apartment buildings are allowed in that area. So they have been working with their architects on designs and realized that the sixplex was really too tight for the area where they wanted to put them, and they wanted to be able to do a fourplex, but the code we wrote doesn't allow that. So the ordinance before you tonight would allow fourplexes within the McCormick Village Overlay District. And it does one other thing, and that this is something we didn't contemplate when we wrote some architectural variety standards in our design guidelines. And in a single-family neighborhood, our code requires that you don't have two of the same housing plan next to each other, that you have to have alternating housing plans, and that you do things to change the facades of houses to make the neighborhood look more interesting and to make the housing a little bit more diverse in appearance. And our code didn't envision a situation where you'd have a fourplex mixed in with a single-family neighborhood, and so we wanted to make sure that you get credit for a fourplex as breaking up the architectural variety within a neighborhood. So the ordinance before the City Council tonight does these two things, and the staff recommendation is to approve the ordinance as presented.
Councilmember Trenary.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance amending POMC sections 20.38.225, 20.38.230, 20.38.240, and 20.38.270, and add the adding sections 20.38.285 and 20.38.290 as presented.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Trenary, a second by Councilmember Diener. Are there any questions of Mr. Bond on this matter? All right. If there's no questions, I think it's fairly straightforward. I think you gave us a pretty good explanation. You'll be voting on adoption of an ordinance for the McCormick Village Overlay District amendment related to fourplexes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the ordinance passes. We're to item B now, approval of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Port Orchard and Century Communities of Washington, LLC, concerning the mitigation of traffic impact fees at Sinclair Ridge in Bremerton. Mr. Bond, this is you again.
Yes, thank you. Sinclair Ridge is a 343-lot subdivision within the city of Bremerton that has sole access from McCormick Village Drive, formerly known as Campus Parkway, in Port Orchard. During the preliminary subdivision and State Environmental Policy Act review process for the project, Port Orchard was successful in requesting that Sinclair Ridge be required to pay SEPA-based transportation mitigation fees to the city of Port Orchard for each house constructed within Sinclair Ridge. The SEPA condition required the payment of $1,668.97 per dwelling unit to mitigate a number of projects in the city, as well as a $1,049 mitigation fee towards the Campus Parkway roundabout, which of course is now known as the McCormick Village Drive roundabout. The Sinclair Ridge project is now owned by Century Communities of Washington and is nearing the construction of the first homes within the subdivision. The City of Port Orchard and Century Communities wish to memorialize the terms and process for the payment of these fees to provide to Port Orchard's Finance Department with guidance for receipt and disbursement of these funds. Under the terms of the MOU, the city will receive a total of $932,455.79 in mitigation fees. Of this total, $359,000 and change is being paid towards the city's cost of constructing the McCormick Village Drive roundabout, and will be returned to the city's Transportation Impact Fee Fund to cover impact fee credits granted to McCormick Communities for the construction of this roundabout under Contract 35-21. The remaining $572,000 and change will be available for use for one or more of 5 projects, and that includes paying down the city's debt on the Tremont Street widening project, the construction of the Anderson Hill Old Clifton Roundabout project, Sydney Road Southwest widening, Old Clifton Road shoulder and pedestrian improvements, and the Old Clifton Road at McCormick Woods Drive intersection improvements. Staff recommends that the City Council approve the MOU as presented.
Councilmember Warden.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the memorandum of understanding between the city and Century Communities of Washington, LLC, as presented.
Second.
Councilmember Warden, a second by Councilmember Diener. Do you have any questions for Mr. Bond? Councilmember Morrissey, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think I just have some questions being new and how this works, because I'm familiar with the spot. It's close to my house, but there's no access to the city of Bremerton from this area except through our roads.
is this the only concession given over time? Because all of these residents are going to continue to use our roads over time. And I need some better understanding on how the city of Port Orchard benefits from that.
Right, so we get one-time payments for the capital improvements, for capacity improvements to serve this development. The ongoing maintenance of our roads is going to be up to us, and there's no framework I know of in place that would allow us to collect maintenance costs from these residents for the use of city roads. The SEPA process is final. We didn't appeal it, and so these conditions can't be changed at this time. This is what we were successfully able to petition Bremerton to agree to. We were also trying to leverage them into giving us some park contributions, and we weren't as successful there because this project has parks within the development that serve the residents, was the argument, and so I couldn't get a contribution for our McCormick Village Park. But this is only the second project in the city that I know of where we got this sort of contribution. It's a big enough project, and the fact that it had sole access to the city, I think we're very lucky that we were able to receive this. And when we have future projects, whether they're in Kitsap County or Bremerton, if they had a similar situation, we would advocate for a similar type of one-time mitigation payment. But there certainly aren't more projects like this in Bremerton. There may be a few in the county where we would seek this sort of mitigation.
Additionally, do we have what happens if we said no?
Well, you would have.
Okay, I don't know, right? Yeah.
The city would have to appeal the SEPA determination by the city of Bremerton and argue that the mitigation is insufficient. So we have a timeline for filing those appeals. So within 21 days of receiving notice from Bremerton that they've issued a determination, we could appeal it and say that the mitigation is inadequate or they didn't evaluate the environmental impacts of the project. So, but once SEPA is final, it's locked in place, and we can't ask for more or change what's been done.
So we can either accept this agreement or accept nothing.
Okay, so that they can move forward whether or not we approve this or not.
Correct.
Okay, that's my question.
Because the city-
I'm still
it's
just a
being
little
permitted
upset
by
I
the
can't
city.
live there and still hold this seat, but that's a whole nother situation.
But this is permitted in the city of Bremerton. And as Nick spoke to, it's a SEPA process to get them to pay for their impacts. Councilmember Diener?
So you mentioned that there were 5 projects that the mitigation fees could be applied towards. Tremont Street widening, paying down the debt on that, and 4 others. Will we hear more about which projects are going to be used? Okay.
And right now, we have a proposal that's been submitted to staff about swapping roundabout projects with McCormick Woods for the roundabout at McCormick Woods Drive, and potentially them building the one at Anderson Hill. But with this money, it kind of changes the finance situation for us. We didn't have a way to fund the Anderson Hill roundabout, and this is a significant amount of money that could be used in that manner. Another significant project could be the if we did do the swap with McCormick Woods on the roundabouts, then we could potentially use this project. If we wanted a project, we could build the multimodal trail along Old Clifton within the city limits. There's also discussion, we have given credit for what was the Campus Parkway roundabout that we've given credits to McCormick Communities to pay ourselves back, and then we'd be able to use that money anywhere within the city instead of just in those locations. So we have a menu of options. This defines 5 things we could do with it, and it'll start with the Transportation Committee and then come to the full council as we evaluate the different options.
Okay, great.
Yep, Councilmember Warden.
I'm trying to stay on track, but you brought up the Anderson Hill roundabout that these dollars could possibly go
Could go
towards.
to that, yeah.
I have a lot of community members that continue to ask. Is there a time frame for that? I mean, is it 25, 26? I mean,
Well, we have a design, a 90% design, I think, Dennis, is that correct? And we've been shopping for grants. It doesn't compete well for grants. So we know pretty confidently it won't get a grant. And it's a $2 million project, I think, back in Napkin, what we saw earlier in the week, to finish the design and to build it. And McCormick Communities has given us a proposal to build that roundabout for us. And we're evaluating that proposal, whether it makes good financial sense or not. And this agreement and these dollars, the difference is between the two projects, if we build the Anderson Hill roundabout, the PSC's power poles are in the way. And PSC for our project has to move those at their expense. And if this becomes the developer's project, they have to move those power poles, and it's over $1 million to move those power poles, and they want to be compensated for that. So we've got to, so we're right now we had a meeting last Friday with staff. We have another one scheduled for this next week. I don't know that it's going to make the next transportation committee, but it's probably coming to the transportation committee in the next couple of months after we can confidently make a recommendation what makes the most financial sense for the city. So I think that project's going to move forward here soon. It's just whether we're building it or a developer's building it for us.
One last question. Could these dollars go towards that $1 million?
No, we cannot pay the developer to build public work. We have to do some sort of a credit arrangement, and so they get discounted traffic impact fees is likely how that scenario will work, and that's their proposal. And so the math equation is whether that hurts our cash flow in transportation projects, but is that a good deal or not? And I can't answer that question today. Councilmember Rosepepe, I'm drawing a blank.
It's okay.
Tonight.
So just to make sure I'm correct, because we've discussed this before, when we've been getting a lot of developer work being done, they also don't have to pay the prevailing wage.
Correct.
And that helps, makes it a little bit more palatable and moves faster also, so.
That's true.
Yep.
More to come on that, I guess is what my answer is. But
Good answer.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
all right, other questions about the memorandum of understanding before us? I'm hearing none. You'll be voting on the approval of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Port Orchard and Century Communities of Washington, LLC. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? And hearing none, the memorandum is approved. We're at item C now, which is the approval of the January 15th special meeting minutes, the legislative dinner. And is there a motion to approve? Councilmember Rosepepe.
Mayor, move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
By Councilmember Rosepepe, a second by Councilmember Morrissey, and I believe Councilmember Chang and Councilmember Diener will abstain in that vote. And all in favor of approving those minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And 2 abstentions. All right, and we're back to item, what was 4C, which is the adoption of a resolution authorizing the purchase for radio read meters from Ferguson Waterworks via DES contract number 0118. Mr. Ryan, this is you.
Good evening, Mayor and fellow council members. Before you tonight is a resolution that would authorize the purchase of 2,500 radio read transmitters that fit on our water meter devices. This is a part of the city's radio read conversion. Today we did receive a report on our prop study, and the news is good. We will have 98.5 coverage with the 3 identified areas. 2 of them are in existing reservoirs.
And Dennis, if you could just pause for the POP, that acronym. What that is with this study, we've identified putting 3 receivers throughout the city that we will be able to read 98% of these meters remotely. And that data coming in directly into City Hall, and no one is out reading meters any longer, so.
I've been with techies all day, so I apologize. So this is the purchase of another 2,500. We have already installed just over 300 meters to date. We are receiving radio feedback immediately, not from City Hall, but as far as a few blocks away, and it's one stop, and it populates all the reads. The reason that we did increase this original purchase from 1,000 to 2,500 is staff is overwhelmingly installing these quicker than anticipated, and we are concerned about lead time. So this is a purchase through Ferguson Water Works. It is on the Washington State contract, and the total purchase price is $473,132.38. Staff does recommend council pass this resolution authorizing this purchase, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Councilmember Diener.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the purchase of water meters and equipment from Ferguson Water Works.
Second first, I need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Diener, second by Councilmember Trenary. And to your question, Mr. Warden.
Yes, just real quickly explain, how do the homeowners, not even homeowners, apologize, utility payers, how do they read it live?
So I cannot speak to the technical details, but I do know that the app that would eventually be available is through our financial software, Tyler Munis. And so I believe it's called My App. So users, I think I have one for similar to for my power bill. I live out of the area. And so it's synced with the software program that the institution is using. So it's direct access, similar to a bank account where you could read.
At the free app?
Yes, Councilmember Ward. So it is an app. Matter of fact, I have it because I can use. I was one of the guinea pigs and right now we can only, you can view your bill and pay your bill on it. Okay. When we take this next phase and implement the second phase, and we have the the receivers throughout the city, that's when it will be live. Right now, we're installing these sending units at the water meters, and our trucks need to get within a block or two of them, and we've got a device in the truck, and the truck drives down the street and picks up the data from all these water meters. The next phase of this project, after we install all of these, the new technology in the water meters, is to then install the receivers that will then turn transmit to City Hall, and that's when you're going to be able to go to the app and look at your water usage. Hey, I'm out of town. Why is my water meter spinning? And so you won't. It'll be live at that point. But we're hoping. Dennis thinks we're going to get this all done this year. Even if this trails into next year, that would be phenomenal. I know that more than 15 years ago, we went to touch read, and we still have a third of the city that we haven't converted 15 years later. So that's why we added some personnel to Public Works. We need to knock these out and get it done to realize this efficiency. And then there's plenty of work for these Public Works employees to do once we knock this project out and realize this efficiency. We won't have people driving around and manually reading water meters or touching the water meters with the wands. It'll be a huge labor efficiency for us, so we're excited about it. But Dennis thinks we're going to get it done all this year. If we get it done even by the end of middle or end of next year, it's a heavy lift. And this very first phase, we're replacing the touch reads, which is just replacing the sending unit. We still have about a third of the city where we're going to have to go in and physically replace old school water meters. And it'll go much slower in that phase than the 15 minutes a meter that we're experiencing replacing the touch reads. So Councilmember Rosapepe?
Mayor, I thought I heard Noah talk at one part, and Dennis may be putting you on the spot. Not only could we look off an app and see what is happening with our water meter, but I thought it was also going to allow the city that if there's some type of break or something that we would be notified.
We can also monitor that. We can set
Monitor it.
parameters and
So
monitor.
it's a
meters.
win-win both for the homeowners and for the city to be able to do this, especially when we look at water conservation. Thanks.
Councilmember Diener?
So you said there's 98% coverage. Do we know where the 2% is that won't have this?
The 98.5 coverage, there was a small area just outside of McCormick Woods, closer to the Bremerton side. This was consideration that the prop study was 80, and 85 feet for the antennas. One of those reservoirs is over 100 feet, so that's coming online, so we already anticipate to have 100%.
Okay.
We could have, the company that did the study is telling us they're guaranteeing 98.5. We could
Minimum,
get better
okay.
performance, and the worst case scenario is we've got 2% that we still have to drive the truck down the
Yeah.
street to read it versus it transmitting to us. Yeah. Councilmember Morrissey first.
I just had a quick question around the technology. Like, does it work if we don't have cell signal? Is it Bluetooth? What type? How are they transmitting this?
It's old-fashioned radio. It's a radio frequency, so there is a battery sending unit on each meter, and it has a 20-year lifespan. So it emits a radio frequency when the information is requested from the reader.
Councilmember Warden?
Not sure who to direct a question to. Let's go to you. Is there a point where new builds?
Already done. We're already requiring the new builds to install these new radio reads. Yep. Councilmember Trineri.
The first off, Dennis, thanks for answering my questions I proposed to you this last weekend. Secondly, can you give me an anticipated idea of the number of total meters we're going to need?
Total in the system, I believe, is just under 4,000. So this is going to get us, this purchase will get us closer to the 3,000 mark. So we do anticipate approximately another 1,000 meter radio sending units that need to be purchased.
All right, thanks, Dennis.
Councilmember Chang.
Thank you for putting this on discussion. I had a couple questions. The first, I realized that this is not the company, Ferguson, that has been in the New York Times. There's a I think small towns in Missouri that did convert to, I think it's Mueller. And they had problems with their meters failing before they were anticipated to fail. So that made me wonder, of course these are different, and this is a different company, but has the Department of Enterprise Services deployed this anywhere else in the state? We're not the first, are we?
No, we are not the first. I can tell you our neighbors in Bremerton have the same system. And it's very common. I came from an agency that did convert to radio meters, and all these questions and conversations that you're having, I know firsthand that the successes that you can have. I've had finance staff ask me or warn me that, hey, you have a leak at your park, you need to get up there and turn the water off. So it's real-time data, and it is definitely proven technology.
And the meters that we're using, we evaluated a number of meters. We're using the exact same meters we have been using. This ascending unit is just a new piece of technology that we're adding to it. All right, any more questions?
One more question.
All right, go ahead.
So we had indicated that there's about 4,000 more units we're going to have. Is it just the exact same unit? Are we expecting the same price for those additional? Because I know the mayor had said we might have to do some wholesale new meter installation on some of those last ones. Will that come at a greater expense?
So there will be additional expense. I can tell you just for the radio sending piece that's still remaining is just going to be approximately $200,000. I will also say the remaining meters that haven't been converted are probably, I do know that they are past their realistic lifespan. When meters get old, the accuracy goes away. These new meters are going to be more accurate and give us real data usage.
I think where you're going with this question too is Dennis is optimistic he's going to get this all done this year. What he's purchased here will expend the budget authority we have in this year's budget. Noah and I are skeptical that he's going to get this and more done this year. And we've encouraged him to knock this out of the park, and then we'll come back to the city council
And find a way to fund.
and find some more money to do the rest of these. But we don't want to put a whole bunch of, hundreds of $1,000s on a shelf and not get to it all this year. Let's take, eat this elephant one bite at a time.
I think I was trying to understand what that future cost may look like for that last 1,000, and is it commensurate with what we're paying for this 2,500, or will it be more expensive
The
for
next
those
bite
additional?
will be, and then when we're buying meters themselves, they're much more expensive, and the labor cost is going to go up too on the last.
1,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Any last questions? Good questions. Good discussion. All right, you'll be voting on where are we here? I'm going to flip it back over to the adoption of a resolution authorizing the purchase of radio read meters from Ferguson Waterworks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the purchase has been approved. We have, so in an effort, so next week's work study, we were going to have these presentations, and we've got 5 of them planned, and we're going to give two of them to you tonight. And the purpose of these presentations is, this is information that our existing council members have seen, but we've got some new bodies here and new faces here, and we're going to have a retreat in April, and this is great foundational information so that we can have our retreat more forward-looking and not necessarily spend a half a day having a history lesson of things we're doing and how they came about. So Nick's going to start with a presentation about development activity and projects, and then I'm going to follow with a presentation about our downtown. So Nick, go ahead.
All right, and if you have questions as I go through this, feel free to stop, and we can talk about a specific project if you have concerns or questions. I'm going to start out with a project. This is the Kitsap County Courthouse expansion, and the graphic that is on the screen here shows the Kitsap County campus. They are looking at a 4-phase courthouse expansion project. They've done a ton of public outreach on this. But we have been meeting with the county talking about the development of their surface parking lot so that they alleviate the parking issues around the courthouse, which is considered phase 0. And then the county has also applied for a development agreement to provide vesting and phasing for those first 4 projects. And the county is also proposing to make improvements to our street frontages all the way around this block. So we have some pretty substandard sidewalks, ADA, accessibility issues. So you'll see Taylor improved as a complete street with sidewalks, curb, gutter, landscaping, and then a number of sidewalk improvements, including the receiving ADA ramps on the opposite sides of the block from this perimeter sidewalk that goes all the way around their project. So that is starting to move. And I would anticipate that the City Council will be voting on a development agreement maybe in May or June of this year, depending on how quickly our attorneys go back and forth on the terms of that agreement.
Nick, is that going to include shutting down Division Street? Or is that in the future?
Phase 4 does propose to create a cul-de-sac on Division and create a pedestrian plaza. And I think everybody's aware there's left turn issues when you come up Klein, turning left onto Division. We have a no left turn sign. Most people don't follow that sign, but there's poor sight lines. And so this was seen as a way to kind of tie this project together and provide a transit drop off in this cul-de-sac area.
Is that what we're going to have to approve when they apply for their phase development?
That is part of the phasing plan, yes.
So it's not to be, when they do the 4th phase, are they seeking approval for all 4 phases at the same time?
Conceptually, yes. They'll have to still do the full civil engineering for each phase, but generally it's going to follow this conceptual plan.
The whole DA will be reviewed.
So what if we oppose the 4th phase? Do we approve the first 3 only, or?
Well, I suppose we would need to have some conversations about that, but I think that the county's pretty far along in the design process and has been doing this public outreach. So probably not a discussion we can tackle right now.
Yeah, and these aren't new concepts.
No, but
with the council in the
you
past.
talk about their public outreach, and the public along Klein isn't aware of their 7-story Law and Justice building. So I'm not sure how sufficient their public outreach is.
But our code, that's within our code. That isn't whether or not they can build that new
7
courthouse.
stories, though.
Correct, that our code allows for
But
that.
it's 4 stories, but the story heights are taller because of the building type. So it's,
Councilmember Rosavega?
Nick, this has been kind of, because of COVID and funding, when do you see this physically building starting and then going through from what, you've heard from the county?
I've heard that part of the parking project may go forward this year.
Okay.
So, that should be coming in as an application soon.
Thank you.
Development agreement is step one.
Yep.
All right, so the next project up on your screen, this is on Melcher near Sherman. This is the Forest Song Project. They've revised their site plan down to 192 units. It had been at 200. They've done their early grading. A land disturbing activity permit is in for review, and I did sign a SEPA decision on this project today. McCormick Village, this is phases 1 through 4. Phase 1 has been complete for some time. It's over on the Figley Road side of the project. Phases 2, 3, and 4 go out Campus Parkway, and the lot counts are indicated. All of these phases have final plat, but they are still actively building homes on at least half of this site. The McCormick Village Master Plan, that was, we approved 4 plexes for this area tonight. They have grading permits for this site, and we have issued the civil plan approval for the eastern portion of the site in the commercial area. I'm told that they have commercial tenants, including a pizza place, a dentist, a veterinarian, a coffee shop, and they're still working on leasing up these areas, but they've come in for permits for the first couple of these commercial spaces, and we're going to see, I think it's 150 or so homes in this first phase, and then additional homes in the western area along Old Clifton Road. Another project that comes from one of our development agreements along Campus Parkway, McCormick has designed some park improvements there at the west entrance, the northwest entrance to McCormick Village Park. They are putting in some pickleball courts, and they've been working with an acoustic engineer because everybody's concerned about the noise from pickleball, but none of the builders actually want the pickleball not to be there. They just want to have their pickleball and not have to listen to the sound of the ball bouncing and hitting paddles. So it sounds like this is going to go forward here in the near future. Potentially later this summer or early next spring, these improvements will be constructed.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Oh, like with the trails and the pickleball courts and all the fun the fun stuff. This is open to the entire public, right?
So I believe the intent is to dedicate this publicly. McCormick has an agreement to make park improvements that are public improvements to McCormick Village Park, and they get impact fee credits for the improvements that they make. There's also improvements planned on the west side of the park closer to the commercial area, and it's not clear whether they need both projects to maximize their credit, or if one project will get them their full credit and they're going to keep the other project as private. I don't know the answer to that yet, and we won't know until we have certified costs for what they actually build. So I think this is going to be public, but I'm not certain. The next project on the list is McCormick Trails. It used to be known as McCormick West. And this is it was originally 1,545 lots off of McCormick Village Drive coming down off of Old Clifton. They're actively constructing the first 4 phases. Division 18, which is 114 lots, is now in permitting, and then there are still, outside of the areas in permitting and under development now, there's still 956 lots remaining. McCormick Division 18, this just shows the layout of those lots. They are at the south end of the subdivision here. McCormick Woods also has remaining lots. There are 697 lots kind of on the eastern half of McCormick Woods. Eventually, St. Andrews is going to connect through where there's currently a 2-way intersection where you go into the townhome or duplex neighborhood here at the south end. That road will eventually loop around and tie into St. Andrews, and there are 6 phases of development there. Plus, there is a public park that will go in called St. Andrews Park. And that has been designed, and I believe that will be constructed with Division K of the McCormick Woods plats. Yeah.
Do you know what they have planned for that park?
Well, I think they have a pickleball, they have playgrounds, they have a picnic shelter, and then a big lawn area that should be, I think, well drained that people can do active play on. The next project, Stetson Heights. This project is probably pretty close to halfway constructed. It's actually 2 separate plats. There was Stetson Heights and then there's Stetson Ridge. Stetson Ridge, they just received their approval for their civil engineering and will be building that road and putting in those sewer and water lines this summer. And I would expect house construction to commence on that area next year. And I think we're probably 2 years from seeing the full build out of Stetson Heights, where all of those lots are finally finished. Haven Townhomes, this is across from the recently completed Haven Apartments project. Currently, we've permitted 114 townhome units. We are working on a couple of agreements with the developer here, but due to interest rates and financing, I'm not sure that this project is going to go forward. They're looking at some redesign options for how to make this a more affordable project, and I'm told that this is at least on hold for now unless something changes in terms of their financing, but regardless, it has been permitted and it's approved and ready to go. Also on Sydney Road Southwest, we have the Kitsap Transit Park and Ride project. And this Kitsap Transit, I believe, is hoping to build this project later this year or early next year. The neat thing about this project is there are going to be development pads that are essentially shovel ready for a developer to come in and put up some buildings. But transit right now is focused on just building the transportation improvements, the parking lot, landscaping, and so they're working on getting this permitted. If you'll recall, we did approve an agreement where they're actually paying for the sewer lift station design, and so the city's consultant is designing a lift station at the direction of the city. Kitsap Transit is hoping to build that lift station and receive a latecomer agreement or some sort of capital facility charge credit agreement against their cost, and that's actually going to open up other development opportunities both on this site but within the basin. Up on Sedgwick, where the new Starbucks is located, that was actually a multi-tenant site where there were going to be some retail spaces and as well as an apartment building. The Starbucks is now finished, and I have no indication that the other two phases of this project are going to go forward anytime soon, but they do have at least some of the approvals that they need for this project to go forward, including a multifamily tax exemption on the apartment project. Pottery Creek Phase 2, this is next to Pottery Creek Phase 1, which is next to Fred Meyer. The final 198 units as part of the Pottery Creek Phase 2 are under construction, and I believe that all of these buildings are now framed with roofs and are probably, if they haven't been sided yet, you'll see siding going up here in the near future. That project did receive a multifamily tax exemption from the city prior to our repeal of that development incentive.
I got another question. For that, the Pottery Creek Apartments, that's, oh, no, I was kind of thinking Blueberry. Excuse me. Never mind. I'm sorry.
All right.
Nick, I do have a question. Are you finished, Heidi?
Sure.
Okay. Back on the Myers of Sedgwick, and I knew that we had repealed the multi-family tax exemption, and you had said that, it was in place for this. Does that expire at any point in time if they don't build within a certain period?
Yes, I believe they have either a 3 or a 5 year window to build this. I don't remember which of those it is, but there is a limitation on that incentive.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next project, the Blueberry Apartments project. This is at the corner of Bethel and Blueberry. You can see in the photo here they're working on 2 of the 5 total buildings. This one is progressing, 108 apartment units, and this was one of the other projects that received a multifamily tax exemption. The developer is also, they're dedicating right-of-way at the intersection of Blueberry and Bethel for the city's roundabout project that's in design, and so they received a small impact fee credit in exchange for the dedication of right-of-way. And so you'll see that the radius that is shown there is where the leg of the roundabout will be constructed.
Nick, how much was that small impact fee?
The appraisal, I want to say it was $18 per square foot, and I think we got about 1,500 square feet of land. All right, the next project, Hidden Hills Apartment. This is accessed off of Salmonberry. You can see the China Sun Buffet restaurant kind of in the bottom left of this photo. They have an approval for 117 apartments. The permits are ready to issue on this project. I'm not totally sure whether this project is going to go forward anytime soon. It sounds like the owner of this project is shopping it and trying to find somebody to purchase it. And I think that the multifamily market has softened a little bit, and so we'll have to wait and see whether this one goes forward. Thimbleberry Townhomes, this was a project that we inherited from Kitsap County when we annexed in 2010, thereabouts. There were recently 4 additional townhome units constructed. There are still 20 units remaining within this development that could be constructed, though no permits have been submitted for those units at this time, but that is something that I expect to go forward here in the next few years. Just down the road, the Salmonberry Apartments is another small apartment project of 28 units. The interesting thing about this project is they're doing a right-of-way dedication that is providing access to the future Home Depot site. And so they're, that actually allows connectivity not only to Home Depot, but through to Walmart and Safeway, and takes some of the pressure off of Bethel. And so it kind of creates a parallel road network. And that's something that's been identified in our plans as a need for quite a few years. The Home Depot, so we got a call from a reporter today. I expect you'll see this in the Port Orchard Independent soon. They have applied for permits to build a store, just for the site development permits, not for the building permits yet. And we are currently negotiating a development agreement, trying to iron out some of the details on frontage improvements and other considerations for a possible store. I think this site plan says 107,000 square feet. I think we're up to 120,000 square feet in the most recent proposal. I will share with you that Home Depot is very concerned about opening a store prior to the city completing the Bethel improvements. They don't want to open and have us rip up the road and sort of disrupt the ability of people to get to their store. And so right now, they're saying that they're targeting 2027, but they're wanting the city to be done with Bethel in 2027, which I'm now told we're probably not starting until 2027. So Home Depot is going to keep, they're trying to keep this project alive and in the queue to be built, but they're asking for us to commit to the exact day that we're going to build this project. And what we've told them is, look, we have right-of-way acquisition that has to be performed. We don't know when that will be complete, and we certainly can't build the project until we control all of the right-of-way that's needed. And so we're not able to make the commitment to Home Depot on the timing for Bethel, just that we're going to do the project. And so giving you an exact date on when this might happen is a little difficult right now.
Nick, if I may, the Bethel project too, I just saw updated concepts today that will be shared with the Transportation Committee at your next meeting. So that design is advancing. And we're having some discussions whether it makes sense to, there are how many parcels? There's a lot of parcels that need to be acquired. And having consultants do that work, having their full attention sometimes is challenging. And so the Finance Committee may see a proposal at next week's meeting. We're still evaluating whether we add a staff member that would do right-of-way acquisition for us and have that in-house. We've got a lot of transportation projects and real estate that we're acquiring, and it could be more efficient and cost-effective for us to do that work in-house. So sorry for that interruption.
No problem. I needed to catch my breath anyway. The next projects I'll talk about, these are off of Harold Drive. There is the Riverstone subdivision. That's a Housing Kitsap self-help project. And then there's the Bridgeview Apartments that's 136 units. They've put all their underground utilities in, but they have not, my understanding is that the developer here has filed for bankruptcy, and they were trying to sell the project, and so I don't know when this project may go forward.
Were any of the homes started? No.
Not in Riverstone, but they have applied for permits, so we're doing plan review on building permits.
Those are the self-help program for low-income
I
families?
thought it was Habitat, no? No?
Housing Kitsap.
Oh.
The next project is also on Harold. This is called the Contour Apartments Project. It's another 24-unit apartment project. The nice thing about this project is they're actually going to extend Harold through to Lund. We've always had the right-of-way there, but nobody ever built the road all the way through. And so this provides an option for people to avoid the Bethel-Lund intersection in terms of the residents that live on Harold, and will hopefully provide some alleviation of congestion at that location. Yep.
Is that on the north end of Harold that they're gonna tie
South.
in?
It's at Lund. So just around the corner from the Puerto Vallarta restaurant.
That
Okay, so
clearing
we've
on the
already
corner.
seen that access point punched in there, correct?
It's kind of a goat path right now, but it's, they'll be grading it out here in the next month or two, I think. All right, moving on to the Mile Hill corridor, we have the Plisco Apartments project. Their first building is looking pretty close to done. Their second building is being framed right now. This is another 58 units and is the, I think, the final of our multifamily tax exemption projects that were approved. Up the hill on Mile Hill, on kind of above the movie theater, we have the Overlook Apartments. I think they've rebranded, and I don't recall what they've named this complex, but there's another 117 units, all of them with really spectacular views of the Olympic mountain range. And these, the first 3 buildings in this complex have received their temporary occupancy. I think the clubhouse and 2 of the apartment buildings are done. The rest of those buildings are still being finished, and we're also still waiting for some off-site improvements. The curb ramp at Whittier and Mile Hill, I think, has to be redone, and they have to repave that road up to the new curb. Finally, I won't steal the mayor's thunder on Kitsap Bank, so I'll skip over that one. 429 Bay Street, this is just down the street from City Hall here where the Lighthouse Restaurant used to be. They did the environmental cleanup, I guess, earlier or in 2023. I'm told that they're going to break ground on this project this spring and finally complete this project that's been permitted for some time. And I don't know if you've heard any further updates on that one there, but last I heard, this will go forward this spring. Diaz Meadows is another project. This is out on Old Clifton Road. We did approve a development agreement and a water credit agreement because they're going to be extending a pretty major section of the city's water system out Old Clifton Road. And so that project, this is another one where I think the owner is shopping the project and hoping to find somebody to buy it and build it. So I feel a little bit less certain about when and if this project will actually happen, but regardless, it has received permits and is ready to go if somebody chooses to build it. So finally, the final slide of my presentation, I just tallied up all of the development activity, and I kind of grouped things into near-term development and long-term development. The projects that people are shopping or that really don't seem like they're necessarily going to move forward in any short amount of time are in the long range, our long-term project list. We have 1,927 total units expected in the near term, and using the city's current Office of Financial Management persons per household numbers, that brings about 4,500 people into the city. For long-term development, it's another 2,209 units of housing with capacity for another 5,800 residents. And so between these two numbers, that's essentially our entire 20-year planning target. We're supposed to bring about 10,500 people into the city over the next 20 years, and we already have permitting in the pipeline to do just that. I do want to caution that in the long term, all of the McCormick projects are there, and I expect that to build out over 10 to 15 more years. So that's not all going to happen real soon, but I think, you know, McCormick is probably at least half of that number in the long-term project list.
So when, Nick, you say near term, are you talking 5 years?
I would say within 2 to 5 years. Yeah, I think that's the 1,900 units in 2 to 5 years is probably realistic.
So 2 to 5 years, up to 10,000 people.
2 to 5 years, 4,500 more people. Yeah.
Councilmember Rosepepe?
So Nick, we've done several, what I heard you say was, based on what the exercises we've done with KRCC, that we're meeting our targets for growth management in a big way.
And we are probably going to hit our target prior to the horizon year that we're supposed to, so we're probably growing a little bit faster than we should be. But the plan gets trued up every 10 years, and so in 10 years we'll get a new number and it sort of resets. So I don't expect us to exceed our 20-year target within 10 years, but we're going to get a new number and they're going to have to adjust our horizon at that time.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Morrissey?
Yeah, I just had a quick question around, we talked about the multifamily market softening, and then there seem to be a ton of units coming on board. How many total, and then how many of you do you think are going to come to fruition?
I don't have the total number, but I think I sent you guys a report after the last meeting, and I think there were 700 or so apartments under construction right now. And so those are projects that are
coming to fruition.
They're coming to fruition. And I mentioned the traffic impact fee credit on the Blueberry apartment project at the intersection of Blueberry and Bethel. The interesting thing, I've mentioned this before, but in the appraisal for that project, there was some interesting data on the rental market, and it actually showed that for the first time at the end of 2022, rents remained flat quarter over quarter. It's the only time in the last decade that's happened, but I think we're finally starting to see rents stabilize. And so after 10 years of quarter after quarter, every quarter rent goes up, it's finally stabilized because we've added so much supply. Whether it goes down a little bit or not, we'll have to wait and see. But at a minimum, we're meeting the demand.
So we got 700 some in construction. How many would you say off the top, a guess for me, are still permitted but may not come to fruition?
Probably at least another 700 or 800 that could come.
Thank you.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they will either. I just am curious.
I think that apartments are a bit built out for this economic cycle. Maybe one or two of them, but time will tell.
Yep.
Councilmember Chang?
Is the graphic, is that a city photo or is that a stock photo?
That is a AI-generated photo from PowerPoint. They'll just give you images now.
Councilmember Warden?
This might be more directed at Chief Brown, but when you budget staffing, do you go off of area or do you off population?
It's a mix as we work to determine workload. Population doesn't really matter. You have to look at geography. You also have to look how close we are to the base, and we're on 16, and we're the entrance to the Olympics, and so we look at trends in workload and trends in crime before we would approach the mayor or council to say, this is what we are seeing, this is what we anticipate, and bring that data forward.
I see, I hear about the 2 to 5 years in the population growth. That's the first thing I think of is like those things.
It's an important piece of the retreat you're about to going to have in April is what are our priorities and where we want to put the precious resources we have. And staff will have some recommendations.
My question here, with our 20-year growth, is there a cap on the population of, that we, will say no for continue new growth after 20 years?
So there's no cap on how much the city can grow, but if we don't grow consistent with the regional growth strategy that's set by Puget Sound Regional Council, we could lose our eligibility to get new federal grants. So our ability to get money to actually fix our roads because we grew too fast, they may say, you got to take care of that yourself. You're not going to get federal money. But that's really the only penalty. If you look at the land area of Port Orchard, we're about 10 square miles. I try to think about what other cities in the area have a similar geography, and one city that comes to mind is Bothell. It has a lot of ravines, a lot of kind of hills. It goes down to the lakefront and has a downtown area. I think Bothell is pushing 70,000 people in 13 square miles. So, could this city accommodate 50 or 55,000 people? Probably, but right now we're only planning for 20 years worth of growth, which doesn't take us anywhere close to that number.
And really what we're hearing in the legislature and continue to hear is and our community is not, but there are communities out there that aren't planning for and responsibly for growth. And we can't put gates on the road and prevent people from coming here. That's why the legislature continues to pass legislation that takes local control away, and our state association continues to fight against that, the legislature taking local control over, so that we can have discussions and determine what that growth looks like in our community. They are continually passing legislation to take that authority away from us, and we're ahead of most of these things that as they're passing, but I know there's a number of things that happened last session and are being talked about in this section that Nick's having to incorporate in our comprehensive planning process. So it's.
Nick, you just said something, I had a follow-up to that answer. How does that compare, on our growth plan, compared to, say, Gig Harbor, right? In my short tenure, in the 10 years I've been in this state, I've seen Gig Harbor grow exponentially. I think that's coming our way, so I'm just curious on where our plan is versus what has actually transpired and or what their plan was down there.
Well, Gig Harbor was in a difficult situation because they were given a growth target through the regional planning process, and before they even wrote their comprehensive plan, they had already exceeded their target. And so Gig Harbor, I believe, I don't know if they were ever actually denied the ability to apply for a grant, but I know that they were threatened after the last comprehensive plan update because they were planning for the growth that had actually been permitted and was entitled, as opposed to the number they were supposed to plan for, which was less than how much they had already grown. So it's difficult to compare. In Kitsap County, there are fewer cities and one city that doesn't really want to grow at all. And so there wasn't a shortage of growth for us, to be spread around. We settled on 10,500. I think Bainbridge took the number that they were comfortable with. And initially, Paulsbo wanted less growth, but then they wanted more growth, and so we had to do some negotiation. And then Kingston is also part of our geography and had a number assigned to them. But Bremerton is a totally separate type of city in the regional framework. It's considered a metropolitan city, and so they have a percentage that's allocated directly from Puget Sound Regional Council.
Presentation? Okay, move on to that. Brandy, can you drive for me? This is a presentation that was put together when the Transportation Secretary came and visited last summer, celebrating the award that the Port of Bremerton got for their breakwater project. You remember our two senators, our congressman, the governor was here, and the day before the governor was going to show up, Governor Staff called me and said, "Hey, but we've awarded all kinds of money to Port Orchard. What's that?" And I started naming it all off, and they said, "Hey, can you get me some data for the governor's talking points?" And so Nick's staff drops everything, puts this slide deck together, and then the governor goes to give his remarks, and he gets ambushed about the ferry operations and doesn't use any of our data. So I've used this presentation numerous times, and it's a little dated. It only has $161 million in investment in our downtown, and there's a couple more projects and a few more million that have come since then. So, Brandy, if you could go to the third page, and that's that graphic with the investments. This is a list of all the projects and the 161 million. I think we're about 165 million because of the state's project now for the estuary restoration and the bridge that they have to put in to replace a culvert down next to our DeKalb Pier and the Port Orchard Boulevard. So, and Brandy, if you advance to the next project, I'll just run through these real quick of the things that are coming in the next few years to our downtown. We've got the port's replacement of the breakwater, $15 million, and that $9 million award that was the big celebration last summer down on the waterfront. The next project is Kitsap Transit is building the sister ship to the Waterman, and the Waterman is a hybrid electric boat. The new boat that's being constructed and the improvements that will happen on our waterfront and in Bremerton's waterfront, the new boat will be totally electric, and it'll plug in and top off at each end as it docks in Port Orchard and Bremerton. So it'll look just like the Waterman. It'll just be all electric instead of having diesel motors that charge the batteries like the Waterman does. Moving on to the next project is Bay Street reconstruction, and we've awarded that contract. I signed a prospectus for the state, matter of fact, today, as we worked through our state. We aren't a big enough city to be our own agent for federal dollars, so we have to work with the state, and as hopefully you're aware, we're reconstructing this whole area of Bay Street. And right now, when we have heavy rains and high tides, there's no place for the water to go. And we don't want to build a new community center in Kitsap Banks, a new headquarters and other development, and a street that already floods. So the street is being rebuilt a 1.5 feet higher. Derek Kilmer gave us funding for that design, that federal award through an appropriation. And we also have received $2.2 million in federal money for what's likely about a $4 million project. If at the end of the year, I'll be able to tell you guys a better indication of what the engineer's estimate is. And we're looking at 2026 for the construction on this, Nick. Is that not correct?
I sure hope so.
Okay. Because the banks, the timing of this is important to the bank. They can't build their building and be 1.5 feet out of the ground. And our ribbon cutting, they've got about an 18-month project, we got about a 9-month project, and they need to finish at the same time. We're really close to each other. Otherwise, it'd be difficult to get in their front door at their new buildings. So we're working as fast as we can to get this designed and then move to construction on that project. The Bay Street Pathway Phase 2, I think the council's seen this project, and this is basically taking us from the ferry terminal and heading west along the waterfront and going up the boulevard. It'll likely involve and tying into Tremont. And up the boulevard, we're probably going to put the boulevard on a diet. There's 3 lanes of traffic there, probably needs to be 2, and one of them will be a multimodal pathway is a likely scenario. So that'll be a fairly inexpensive project with some paint that we do in the next year or 2. So that's the pre-design. We've got funding for that pre-design, and you see where it travels up the boulevard. We're all living in a remodel. This is underway. The reskin project of City Hall. It's roof, windows, siding, heating system, lighting, carpet. A significant remodel in the police department to accommodate the growth in our staff there, so that we can live within the footprint of the building that we have. They should be done about April 1st, about the middle of March, moving into their space about April 1st. Those of us on the second floor start moving out tomorrow. Matter of fact, the clerk's office moves tomorrow. We've got to vacate the entire second floor. And since I'll talk about this now versus my mayor's report, you'll find your mailboxes probably starting in the next day or 2, instead of down on the second floor, they're going to be back here in this conference room because we're over the next couple of weeks, we're moving out of the second floor of City Hall as this project moves along.
I know this is just a minor issue, but saying that's a reskin project makes it sound like we're just doing the outside, and this is so much more that we have going on.
It is primarily outside, but I mean, lighting, carpet,
Interior,
paint.
yeah, I mean, even, the addition of solar, I mean, it's a huge project.
And I've got some pictures to share in my mayor's report here in a few minutes of, I got to go up to the top of the clock tower yesterday. Yes.
Where's the second floor moving to?
Everywhere.
The 3rd floor?
No, well, yes. Some HR and the clerk will be back working behind the court in a secure area. All of our customer-facing activity is going to be over at DCD. So from utility payments to Public Works issuing keys for the Active Club and things of that nature. So all of our customer-facing activity will be over on Prospect Street. And we're gonna shoehorn basically the entire engineering department in with the planners across the street in the lease space. So it'll be crowded, and some teleworking going on too. So, go ahead, Yetch.
We got an active communication plan for all that, for folks looking.
We just had the meeting on Monday about all
Okay.
of this. So yes,
Let's not get behind that. As somebody who's experienced that frustration with another municipality, communication key.
yeah, matter of fact, I emailed Josh today about an update on where we're at with some stuff. And yes, we've got, the front door at times will be closed, and the access point will be down at the main floor because they're going to be doing construction work in that hallway as you come in off Prospect Street. So, but yes, I agree, lots of communication. All right, moving on to the next project, the community center. We hope to be breaking ground on that in 2027 because the road's done and the bank's moved into their new building. We had a meeting, matter of fact, it was a Friday? It was Friday with the bank on timelines. We've got the Orchard Street Plaza. You just recently awarded that final 100% design for the Orchard Street Plaza, which is that red area. Our goal is to put this out to bid with the community center if we are able to cobble. This is the only piece of all of this redevelopment that isn't fully funded, and got an engineer's estimate. I think it was $4.3 million. Nick's going to be, he assures me he's going to get us a $500,000 grant, and I've been talking to Senator Murray's office already about this project, and they seem fairly excited about it. If Mark Nick's numbers are correct, we'll likely have enough local dollars in our park impact fees to fund this too. But if the housing market fell on its face, we could delay this project and build it separately from the community center. That's not our goal. We'd like to have one big construction project and cut a ribbon in that plaza for the community center at the same time. The Marina Lift Station that you've been seeing the drilling activity that's finished. That drilling equipment disappears next Monday, and you'll start to see a 40-foot deep hole built here. Next is the next step, and that's a concept of what it'll look like about a year from now when that project completes. Yes, sir.
Is there a reason it's labeled as a multi-use building?
It's got a restroom.
Okay.
Best answer I got.
Sorry.
Nick's intern did this graphic. So. Yeah. Oh, no, okay, this is our designers, okay. It does have a public restroom. And some common area out in front of it. Fair question, though. We've got there's another project over here where the Performing Arts Center is. The port has bought that property and has received a Brownsfield grant to clean that property up. That is going to happen this fall, I believe, by this fall. And unfortunately, the building needs to be torn down for the environmental cleanup to happen, and the Performing Arts Group is looking for a new home. So if of any locations. We got the Kitsap Bank headquarters. I think we've talked about that. They're fully committed to this project. The new jobs and the investment they're going to make in our downtown is exciting. Nick already talked about the 429 Bay Street project that'll probably get going again next summer. And then lastly, it was great to have a chance to have some conversation with the Transportation Secretary. So that is my presentation. And so you won't have a work study next week because our work study was going to be these two presentations and a labor meeting that we're going to tack on to the end here tonight. So we're going to keep you a little late tonight so that we don't have to bring everybody back next week. So yes, sir.
Go ahead, Heidi.
Oh, okay, thanks. Oh, now on the pedestrian walkway on Phase 2, is there a time limit that we have on that?
We got a grant to fund the design. We have not accepted any funding to it. It'll likely be done in a number of phases. Some of the improvements happen as part of the community center. we'll get a pathway through the plaza and along the waterfront. So it'll happen in bits and pieces versus a large construction project like Phase 1 has been, which has been done in 3 phases. The boulevard is probably something that we'll fund. We may pursue a grant, but it's likely something that we could do with local dollars to build it.
Oh, yeah, so 3 million the local taxpayers will pay, and then we have a grant for the other 5,100,000 and the one that you set up here?
I closed my slide.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just had this, I should have asked the question.
No.
Yeah.
I just closed my slide deck out.
Yeah. So is that the grant that will finish that project?
If we don't have a grant for this.
The last little bit?
Okay, this is, excuse me, this is Phase 2, which is going to Annapolis.
Right.
Right here, yes. And then the other is Pathway West, that's what I was referring to.
Okay.
So this is yes, this is, we have these dollars in hand for this construction.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Sorry for the confusion, I thought you were referring to
I
the
know.
pathway going up the boulevard.
Pathways.
Which is a different project. All right, back to our agenda here. Council committees, I know all of you have, I think, ironed out, other than utilities, our utility manager had a death in the family, so she hasn't been in the office, but I know she'll be reaching out soon for you guys normally it would have been tonight. I'm certain that you guys will meet next month. So I think all of our committee dates have been set. Brandy will publish that, and I think the first committee of this meeting is next Tuesday for the finance. So, Council members.
We do have a sewer advisory next week on the 21st.
Next week also. Okay.
On that, and I'll touch base with them and get back to the other 2 members with some information. I thought Jackie was gone, so I'll hunch that a little bit more and find out and email both of you, okay?
Are you the sole person on that?
No, we all go.
There's three of you.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying, so I'll give you.
Get back to me.
No, I'll get you some more information about.
Perfect.
Okay, because they alternate locations and stuff.
All right, and I apologize, we haven't met for 3 weeks, so I've got a fairly lengthy mayor's report. So I'm going to start with the retreat. Be sure to send me what it is you guys are, topics you want on that retreat. We've got the contract signed with the facilitator. We're part of the homework we're doing ahead of the retreat are these presentations. In future presentations you're going to see over the next few weeks are a presentation on the sewer and water utilities, our transportation projects, and Noah is going to give us a presentation on transportation funding sources. There's a whole bunch of different pots of dollars and how things are paid for when it comes to transportation. So we want to get everybody up to speed on that. We have provided the list to Sam from POPSA for the Chesterfield Festival of Chimes and Lights of the things that the city would perform as we look to hand off the festival. She was in today. Did you guys talk about that? No. Okay. All right. But more to come on that. Anyway, they have the information that we promised them. We got it to them last week. Pottery non-motorized project. That is the road diet in front of Cedar Heights Middle School. We received 7 bids. They were all tightly grouped. Unfortunately, the low bid is about $600,000 more than what we estimated for the project. And so we're hoping to bring this to you. Noah and I and the engineering group have met. We've figured out how we can cover that. About $450,000 of it will come from various restricted fund sources, not our general fund, but about $150,000 would need to come from our street fund, which is largely comes from our general fund. But we do have dollars in there. I just want to make sure that you guys are all still heads nodding that this is an important project and we need to, bring this contract forward possibly the end of the month, and for sure the first meeting in March. So, guess, yes.
Quick question, kind of channeling John Clausen. So how does this impact our basically paving issues that we've had throughout the city if we're looking at taking 150 out of
Street fund.
out of street
It
fund?
could if the economy softened and we didn't find, if, you know, we're performing better than budget. I've already
Right.
gotten, and finance will see that, and it was a little more than $100,000 already.
Yeah.
So
No, sense
it
the
could
numbers.
have no effect,
Okay.
because we're performing very well. And Noah will talk a little bit about what's called cash carry forward. And so when we do and we don't have 2023 completely closed out yet, when we overperform in the budget, from a revenue standpoint, and then when we spend less than was authorized, and I'm confident we have, I just don't have a number yet to share with you guys yet, that we'll have some cash carry forward from last year. In years past, it's been nearly $1 million. It won't be anywhere near that. We didn't overperform last year. The economy has softened. So, but the worst case scenario is that 150 could affect some of our street pave, but this is a street project.
I understand that, Mayor. It's just that, you know, and I'll speak for the previous council, had made a commitment to keep our paving going throughout the city, and I don't want to see us lose that initiative in there. And so if that's something that we need to talk about at the retreat, then I would say please add that, because I think that's we've heard enough about that from our citizens.
Already one of the items I put on that list is.
Then thank you very much.
And we funded, you know, when I first became mayor, we funded about $200,000 a year, and I've advocated and the council supported $1 million investment virtually every budget, and we put $1 million in our streets this last year, and we have modest things we're planning for from a pot, you know, that our crews are doing. We aren't doing a big overlays. We did those, you know, we contract those out every other year and then do modest things with our crew. And I can't promise you that it won't impact it. I don't think it will, because I've already seen January's number, and we've got most of that 150 in January's number.
Okay, thank you.
But Mayor, we will have the opportunity to have a discussion about this prior to it actually being approved and moving forward, correct?
I will make sure Noah is prepared to fund, to talk more about where that $150 specific, $150,000, it's not $150, $150,000 would come to. But I think from a safety, you know, it is a street project, and we are repaving that street and making significant improvements to our street with this. It's just, may not be able to do some other.
I don't want to beat a dead horse. You understand our concern.
Okay. I already talked about the mailboxes. Hey, Brandy, could you bring up the pictures of the clock tower? So yesterday, you're going to see the scaffolding start to come down. Yesterday, I got to go up on the clock tower, and it's up to the top of 7 stories. It's over 100 feet.
You didn't invite us?
It was a little bit on the contractors. So, what, you know, people wonder why we're doing so. So that's some of the trim boards up at the base of the clock tower and that are all rotten up there. And Brandy, if you could jump to, and we get a significant amount of water intrusion in the. We've got a tub up in the clock tower that collects water, and it's got a sump pump in it, and it's got a garden hose that goes out to the roof. So, and Brandy, there's another picture with the new flashing. So this is believe it or not, the whole clock tower is copper, and so that you can see that bright shiny copper is the new flashing that they've installed around the base of the pyramid, I guess, that is the top of the clock tower. So you'll see that scaffolding from the base, basically from here up, go away. They've got one last step to put a treatment on you'll see it in a moment. In another picture, the very tip of the clock tower is patinaed and turned green, but the rest of it is turned kind of a black from our environment. So they're gonna clean it and try to put a treatment on it that'll make the whole thing patina. So that's one less step. And then yesterday, I got to climb up with the crews and mount our ship that flew away about 10 years ago and put that on top of our weather vane. And those construction workers, so that's all just plywood decking, and those guys walk around fearlessly, and the whole thing kind of bounces, and it was kind of unnerving, you know. And Brandon, if you could show the views up there were just.
Who made that?
I don't know. We bought it like over 10 years ago to replace it, but how do you get up there? So this is the first opportunity we had to.
I just
think
didn't know
of
if it was a local artist or it was a
No,
story
it
or,
was
okay.
So if you could zoom in on that. I wish it wasn't as cloudy as it was yesterday, but boy, what a view up there on top of the clock tower. So and it was just a fabulous experience to go up on top of the clock tower. Could you bring up that picture of the Marina pump station? Do you have that one handy? Just want to, if anybody hasn't walked by and seen the hole, no, that's not the Marina pump station.
Oh, that's the one.
That's the drone shot. Anyway, we don't need to. Anyway, I had some photos of the hole they're digging. I've got a bad proposal and a worse proposal for you to consider.
Oh, perfect.
All right. So
The bad one first.
WashDOT, Washington Department of Transportation, has a fish culvert by Premier Rentals, and they have to replace that with a bridge. They're having discussions with us. Their proposal that I'm not really fond of is to completely close the road for 60 days and build one bridge that would have a narrower footprint. The second alternative is 18 months of construction, and they keep the road open at all times with two-way traffic and build one bridge and then move the traffic to that bridge and then build the second bridge.
Mile Hill.
You said the first bridge was narrow, did you say?
It would narrow the footprint versus building two bridges if they if they closed it and built it all at once.
It's the same road section. The lanes and shoulders and sidewalks will be the same under either scenario.
This is under Mile Hill, correct?
This is Mile Hill, but within the city.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and so do we want a lot of pain for 60 days and closing the road? I wasn't excited about that alternative. I don't like 18 months of construction either, but
I think my first thought is what kind of contingencies can we put in if they go beyond 60 days?
we can't.
Then I would be completely against that.
They said 50 to 60 days.
I'm, with my old hat, if they didn't do it during summer, that would impact schools so bad, it wouldn't even be funny.
I'm not a fan of closing the road.
No.
They're asking, it saves them money too.
I know.
but
I'm
that's
just saying
not
is that would be a disaster.
Well, what detour are they providing if they close the road, and what segments are they
They
talking
aren't gonna
about?
build a new road for a detour. It's the existing roads infrastructure.
So they're closing it at Mile Hill at Retzel.
Somewhere in, you just past it, yeah.
Well, there's gotta be a detour.
There's no bridge. They're building a bridge where a culvert is. So near Premier Rentals.
There's no, you couldn't detour enough to get around there
Yeah.
for love or money.
So our alternative is a,
No. Yeah.
Mayor, this isn't a decision we have to make tonight, correct?
well, we're in discussions with WashDOT. I'm just,
I'd go for the 18 months.
18 months.
18 months.
kind of what I felt too is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
After their last go around with the roundabout.
Yeah, that's, I'm like, if you can guarantee 60 or we have some kind of
No.
pushback
18
on
months.
what
I
happens.
didn't like the idea of closing the road either. Okay, so moving on, I just didn't want to make that decision in a vacuum. And communicate that there's gonna be 18 months of construction when there was an alternative. So,
not
all
an
right,
alternative.
so Dennis knows what the marching orders on that are. Puget Sound Regional Council has its general assembly where they vote on their budget. It's April 30th. I think you're my alternate. You're welcome to attend that. It's in Seattle on April 30th. Everybody's welcome to come to it. It's a midday meeting in downtown Seattle. We vote on their budget and any changes to their operating policies and things of that nature. But it's not anything you are required to attend. So if you want to attend, let Brandy and I know, and we'll get you registered. And it's on April 30th from 9:30 until 1 p.m. So it's a ferry ride. It'll eat up most of your day by the time you ride the ferry back and forth. We found, oh my goodness, personal policy that we need to change. Debbie's going to talk about some others. Because it stated that the internet is not essential for employees. Internet access will be provided to employees upon approval from their respective department directors. So evidently our employees have been using the internet inappropriately. I've already talked about the Orchard Street Plaza construction cost at $4.3 million. Chris and Dennis and I traveled down to Olympia a couple weeks ago. Remember our 2 roundabouts on Bethel and Lincoln and Mitchell and Lincoln. They have separate funding sources. The Bethel and Lincoln is a federally funded project, and the Lincoln and Mitchell is a state source. The state source had a spending timeline that we had to meet, and we already exceeded it. And we are likely, because of the fish tire compound and fish thing that we have to get approval from Fisheries, I believe it is. It's a federal agency anyway that we have to get approval from, is likely another 2 years out. And we would have lost our funding. So we made a pitch to separate the 2 projects into 2 construction projects. And Transportation Improvement Board approved our proposal that we went down and met with them about, and we will be under construction this summer on the roundabout at Mitchell and Lincoln. It'll cost us a little more to do it as 2 separate projects, but it was the only way we could retain this funding. The upside to this is it improves our traffic control plan and options by having the one roundabout built, and we can get people around it and around the other project. So there is some upside to it. Last week I was at the Association of Washington Cities Action Days. I had numerous conversations with a number of legislators. And one thing that was interesting, I found not everyone agrees with the governor's plans for the electrification of the ferry system. You know, our ferry system is in shambles, and we need boats now, and the technology hasn't been completely developed for the hybrid electric boats. And this is definitely something that we should be achieving to electrify these boats, but it only saves us $2 million a year, but the construction costs and the delays associated with those hybrid electric boats is years out and many, many more millions of dollars than that.
I think they're finding it's not green. The RV industry has found that the actual carbon footprint of creating all that doesn't actually, you're not helping the environment.
Yeah, it's anyway. There's consensus that we need to build ferries now, and that isn't going to happen this session, but there's definitely a lot of grumbling about that issue as I talked to various folks. Wednesday morning there was a great session. I wish all of you, and it was a great refresher for me, and it was do's and don'ts of running smooth council meetings, and we're doing a lot of these things already, but I'll just share them quickly with you, is ask questions ahead of the meetings. Others may have the same questions, you're seeing that, and when I get an email, then I get the answers, I share those with you guys. Bring your questions early, it helps us communicate in a more comprehensive manner. trust and respect your staff as was the facilitator. You know, they're the subject matter experts, and you know, it's very important to trust the information that they're bringing to you. It's important that all of you get the same information, and they talked about the importance of Robert's Rules and Order, and public comment. And it's our job to listen, not engage. Legitimate questions will be answered from staff offline. We always do that. There was a great legislative panel, discussions around cities that are seeing exceptional growth, should be receiving additional revenue. And there's communities out there that don't want growth and are making, particular the growth related to traffic. If your community is growing exponentially, there was conversations about those cities should be getting prioritization for that funding. Another interesting takeaway, 83% of the Caminus revenue goes into the state's general fund. And there were some discussions, some of these funds should be going into the criminal justice fund. And I think that's a good idea. The next day we had a presentation by the state's economist. He will release his report tomorrow. And some of the takeaways from his presentation to us were the economy is still growing, but at a much slower pace. And we're seeing that in our finances too. Fewer home starts across the state, maybe not in Port Orchard, but in many other places. And interest rates his forecast interest rates should start dropping at some point here in 2024. And as I said, his full report will be issued tomorrow to the legislature. So that ends my mayor's report. And department directors. Let's start with Dennis.
Good evening again. Just briefly, earlier in the month, it was reported that there was a small washout or slide on Bethel that was just north of the Mile Hill Roundabout. That's on a state route in the city limits. We did notify the state of the issue, met them on site. Prior to that, though, our public works crew did do the channel delineation, and then we coordinated with the repair with the state. So if you happen to see the work happen. So that's it. Thank you.
Debbie, I think you've got a couple things.
Thank you. Good evening. The City Council has passed a couple ordinances allowing the mayor to administratively modify policy, and we have a couple updates to provide you related to that. The first is with the city's accident prevention plan. In the last 6 months, we have updated the outdoor heat exposure policy due to new regulations from the state. And we've updated the coronavirus protection plan with new guidance from the CDC. And I just read today they have yet again new guidance coming out. So we'll do that one again. The other one is related to personnel policies. And the city did make changes with the mayor's authorization to an operating procedure regarding the drug and alcohol testing of our CDL holders. And that is simply administrative because we are part of the Association of Washington Cities pool and they changed vendors. So we had to change the names of the companies in that policy offering those services to us. So anytime we have these types of changes, we'll bring you those reports. And that's all I have.
Bond?
I was just going to share that we continue to clear temporary signs from the right-of-way that violate our code. So I have not been noticing signs as I've been driving around for the past few weeks, but if you see any problem areas, feel free to send an email and I will make sure that code enforcement goes out to pick those up. The other thing is we've picked up a ton of signs. Not a single person has come asking for their sign to be retrieved. So we're going to be throwing a load of them into the dumpster here in the next couple of days.
Wonderful. That's great.
And they are collecting those, correct?
Yes, we
Okay,
are.
there was a stack of them over off Anderson Hill Road. I haven't noticed them, so they must have come back and got them, but it was like somebody went and took them all down and put them in a pile, and they were there for a couple of days, I think. So I just wanted to make sure.
It may not have been us doing that. I
It
think
may not have been. I was just curious.
somebody was proactively doing our work.
All the help we can get.
Archer?
Thank you. Nothing substantive this evening. Just wanted to flag for you that I will be absent from the next meeting, and my colleague, Don Rayton, another attorney in our firm, will be here in my absence. So thanks so much.
I will be attending remotely to that meeting, and council members, it'd be awkward for me to facilitate the meeting online, but I'll be available to answer questions and give you my less lengthy mayor's report at the next council meeting. Councilmember Chang. Yes, I'm hoarse now too. Councilmember Chang will be facilitating that meeting. Chief Brown?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to briefly speak to the article that was in USA Today on Saturday. This was reference a 2019 case, but it was actually a federal task force case that was adjudicated in 2022. I was interviewed in October to provide some local context. Again, this is a West Coast size scale of case. And then that article was initially published in December. I know a number of people had reached out when that article was published in December. I was unaware that it was coming out on Saturday. I certainly got some very early morning phone calls and would have advised everyone if I had known that it was coming, but I was not made aware. It's important in cases like this that they are visible and that we shine a light on a problem that is in every community across our country, across our state, and across our county. To not do so can create the problem that existed. And while I'm certainly disappointed in the tone of the article, it is important that when we have stories like this that are going to come out and we are invited to participate, that we provide information so that we can at least share our side and share our perspective, as opposed to declining and allowing the entire story to be guided by someone who necessarily doesn't have that information. Thank you.
Councilor Rose Pippin.
So, Chief, obviously, several of us got phone calls or text messages about it. And if you read the article the second time, it certainly not softened it, but put it more in perspective. As you said, it was 2019 case adjudicated later. My question was, how did you get contacted about, for lack of better words, being the point person on that?
The point person for the city of Port Orchard?
You called about it. I was just curious. I mean,
Yeah, my phone number and my email is on our website.
Yeah, no, I understand that part. No, being identified, because the article almost had you as the exclusive.
Yeah, I think he's asking how is it not, they didn't reach out to the DEA as opposed to Port Orchard.
They certainly, if you read that article more than one, the chief, well, the headline and the picture made it look like a feature article about Port Orchard.
Yes, I agree with that.
But it wasn't.
No.
90% of the information came from the U.S. District Attorney and from the DEA agent. You know, Chief had two factual statements.
No, it wasn't that. It was more of just like, how did we get the headline, on that?
We don't control the media.
No, I'm not saying.
I think it certainly can be, yeah, I mean, it makes it more salacious, I think, when you say a small town as opposed to a large town. But the reality is the case spanned multiple countries.
Keep recruiting.
Yes, sir.
Well, Chief, wasn't the journalist from out of state?
Yes.
So it seems odd that an out-of-state, smaller paper would be so focused on the story.
It wasn't a smaller paper, it was USA Today.
No, they
The
reprinted
original
a story from the Courier Gazette or something.
They were a USA Today affiliate, and so that was just I mean, it's very similar to the way that our papers work in this county and throughout the state.
Randy? Nothing to report. All right, we're in our second citizen comment period. Mr. Brown, are you here to talk to us? You identify, I know you, but could you identify yourself for the record when you get to the microphone?
Yes, I will. For the new people, my name is Richard A. Brown. I lived here for 84 and a half years. I have been in real estate in Port Orchard for the last 54 years. I've seen everything, from the dock where the new apartments are going to go, to the Chinese restaurant that we used to sell fish at, so on and so forth. What I'm concerned about right now is building apartments right on the roadway without acquiring the right-of-way. And that is on the the south west corner of Sedgwick and Sydney. Ron and I own Sedgwick and Sydney. I'm getting screwed by the Kitsap Transit currently. They're trying to take my property cheap by eminent domain. But what I'm concerned about is future right-of-ways on Bethel, on Sedgwick and Sydney, in those areas. I don't want him, Nick, approving projects that we haven't required the right-of-way when we're going to need it. Sydney's probably going to have to be a 4-lane highway. And we can't get across the bridge after 4:30 in the afternoon. We're not paving the roads. This is the things that people see. And the apartment amount that that gentleman was wondering if we could have, you're not going to be able to buy a house in Port Orchard. It's going to be too expensive. There is no way around it. The Growth Control Act, called the Growth Management Act, there's no management in it. We have gone from cheap housing to very expensive housing. And there's $62,000 difference between what houses sold for in this area last year, 2023, to what it is now. $60-some thousand. My God, this is crazy. The Growth Management Act is the worst thing that ever happened to the state. It's ruined California, and it's ruined Oregon, and now it's ruining Washington. Why can't people see, and everything you do here, you think it's not big time. It is big time. How, Nick has a certain amount of population he has to have. Last time we asked Bremerton for population they wouldn't use, they didn't give it to us. Now, do we have enough population to house the people in the apartments that are going to be needed to house these people? We have 3,500 to 4,000 people moving in to build the dry docks. Plus, we have people coming across the bridge to get cheaper rent over here when it's $2,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. Where are your kids going to live? I kind of think about that because I lived here all my life. So I think that ask questions and try to do a job for the people who elected you. And so that's what I have to say.
Thank you for your comments, Mr.
Thank
Brown.
you.
Thank you.
Others wishing to address the council? Anybody online? You can use the raise your hand feature. All right, I'm going to close the second citizen comment period. We're to the good of the order. Is there anything for the good of the order? Councilmember Chang.
Oh, I'm sure you all read that former council person Carolyn Powers passed away on February 1st. There was a good obituary, I guess, in the Kitsap Sun.
I plan to attend the service once, if I can, once the date's been set. So, yes, thank you for sharing that, Fred. 98 years old, I believe. Councilmember Rose Pepe.
Yes, just on my soapbox as normal. As of been working at elections the last 2 weeks, nothing on the South Kitsap ballot, but ballots through the rest of Kitsap County. And as of 2 days ago, only 28% of the ballots have been returned. And the reason I keep saying this is that, it's to me, it's how democracy dies, and I don't know what we can do later in the year for encouraging people to vote, but I hope at some point in time we can discuss it, how we get the word out. We can't make them vote, I understand that, but it is something that's very concerning to me. They don't expect it to exceed 38% this go around.
The first Saturday of the month, we did coffee with the council member down at the Mercantile on Bay Street. That was pretty successful in my opinion. We had several people come in with concerns or questions or just general comments, all positive. There was no negativity. On social media, there was lots of positive comments about us hosting it, and they were thankful for that. It was 2 hours, went really quick. If nobody showed up, it still would have been a success as far as how we utilize our time, and it was pretty nice to be in there. It's a very busy coffee shop, So people were coming in, coming out, and just having some brief conversations. It was 2 hours. It was worth it. So look forward to next month.
Sharing that. Other goods of the order, and you guys got us probably 8, 10 questions, and by midweek, we had answers to you to communicate. So, all right, and then, of course, shared with all, answers to all of you, which is important. We are going to go into an executive session, and I'm gonna optimistically say 20 minutes, and that's up to you. And then after, and we may need to extend, after that executive session, I'm going to come out and adjourn the meeting. There is going to be no action taken after the executive session. And then it is considered a separate meeting. We're going to then reconvene a collective bargaining session related to union negotiations after the executive session, and we've adjourned the meeting. So if you want to read the statutes for the executive session.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mayor. The council will enter into an executive session pursuant to RCW 4230-110 subpart 1, subpart I, to discuss legal risks of a proposed action when public discussion may have adverse legal or financial consequences, immediately followed by a closed session pursuant to RCW 4230-144B. The executive session is anticipated to last 20 minutes, as the mayor stated, with the collective bargaining session to last an additional 20 minutes.
Right.